Hi, my name is Nazanin Bonyadi. I've been campaigning for Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe's release for 2 years. April 3rd will mark the 2-year anniversary of her time in prison since she was arrested in Iran. She hasn't committed any crimes. For 2 years, her husband, Richard Ratcliffe, has been campaigning tirelessly for her release and the return of his wife and his daughter Gabriella, who's also stuck in Iran. Today, Richard's asking us to share a joke, share something that's funny, and he's going to collect them and put them into a calendar and share them with Nazanin and Gabriella and hopefully lift their spirits. So please, share your jokes. Thank you.
When she was arrested by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So this week we've been involved in a bit of a snowstorm. For an awful long time I was trying to push the government to condemn Iran for its actions and to say, listen, this is a British mum, an innocent mum that was on holiday, who's being arrested and held on charges of overthrowing the regime and national security and just really crazy stuff. It can't be possible that the government can't speak out. Finally, last Wednesday, Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, did indeed do that. And in Parliament, at the Foreign Affairs Committee, which is a parliamentary committee, he said to Parliament that Nazanin was, her case was a miscarriage of justice, a mockery of justice were the words he used, and that as far as he understood it, she was just training journalists, and that he would promise to go and visit her as soon as possible. Now, I came away, having watched that, actually quite elated at the time. He'd finally said that this was a mockery of justice and that she was innocent. And then he'd also said that he was promising to visit her. The thing he said that wasn't correct was that she was there training journalists, when in fact she'd been there on holiday. Didn't think much more of it for a couple of days, until what happened was on Saturday morning, Nazanin was dragged into court suddenly, Revolutionary Court 15, facing Judge Salavati, who's the harshest of the Iranian judges. And she was told that she was going to be charged with a new charge of spreading propaganda against the regime. I spoke to her afterwards. She was allowed to call me, and she was just full of tears, really distraught. The following day, I managed to speak to her again. She called me. And in fact, she was calmer. She'd spoken to many of the other prisoners who said they couldn't believe that this had happened. Like, it's almost unprecedented that someone can be charged twice for the same crime. And then the next day, out came a press release, a statement from the Iranian judiciary saying that the UK had confirmed that Nazanin wasn't on holiday, but that she was there training journalists after all. And what had happened was the judiciary had taken the words of the Foreign Secretary and were using them to frame her. So Nazanin was kept in solitary confinement for the first 8 months of her time in prison. That's being kept in a room a little bit bigger than a double bed. She would have a long time no company apart from the company of her interrogators, who would bring her out of the room and interrogate her, sometimes blindfolded, and occasionally she was brought out to be exercised around the yard where she was allowed to walk. After 38 days of being in solitary confinement, she was allowed a visit from her family for the first time. At that point, she was unable to stand up, and Gabriella had to be lifted onto her lap. A week later, when she came out of solitary confinement, she couldn't walk, unaided. She was taken to court in September of last year and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for issues relating to national security. At one point she got so low that she threatened suicide, and she went on hunger strike for a number of days. And she was eventually diagnosed with advanced depression. For the rest of us, an awful lot of what she's gone through, we won't know, we won't understand until she's home. I can see the consequences had on Gabriella. So Gabriella, my daughter, was in Iran with Nazanin when she was taken and has been brought up by her grandmother. I'm not able to get there, I can't get a visa, her mother's in prison. As she's grown up, she's forgotten her English and she's learned Farsi, and she's learned to become a little Iranian girl. She now goes to nursery and indeed learns English at nursery. So she can say to her father, I love you. And she can now say, I miss you. And she can also say, see you tomorrow, which she thinks means goodbye. So it's been a complete mess this week, and all sorts of things happened. But finally, Boris Johnson did acknowledge his mistake and correct it in Parliament, which was the key thing we asked for. So I've faced a number of calls these past couple of days on what's my view on the Foreign Secretary and whether we should be calling for him to resign. And of course, that's not my place to say. It's also not in Nazanin's interest to have the Foreign Secretary battling for his job. For me, the most important thing is that he's focused on bringing Nazanin home, and all of his efforts and all of the efforts of the government are focused on exactly that and doing what they can do to pressure Iran to release her. Right now, the next thing I would like is for him to make good the promise he made to go to visit Nazanin in Iran. That would send a big and important signal. So what I hope is that before Christmas, we're able together to bring her home. But people often ask me, well, what can I do? What else can we do? And the simple thing is, we have a petition on change.org which just keeps on collecting signatures. So please, if you haven't signed the petition, please do. I firmly believe that enough people care, then the right people will care enough, and that will bring Nazanin home. So thank you to all of you who've continued to care about